Hello everyone, welcome back to Kevin Sucks at Poker. This is vlog number 5. These hands were recorded on May 21st, 2022, that's a Friday. They were recorded back at the old stomping grounds Bellagio, playing more 2-5 no limit. This video should be coming out right before Father's Day, so I want to wish my own dad a happy Father's Day and a happy Father's Day to everyone else as well. Also want to wish everyone a happy Pride Month. Real quick before we get into the hands, I just want to share one thing with you, and that's that on this night of the recording was the first time anyone's recognized me from my vlog. So that was pretty exciting for me. We sat down at a new game and I was setting my phone up for recording, and a player just kind of kept staring at me, and I thought he was just trying to figure out what I was doing, messing with my phone and getting everything set up. But as he kept staring at me, I kind of gave him a head nod to say what's up, and he asked me, "Are you Kevin Sucks at Poker?" And I didn't really hear him, so I asked him what he said. And he said, "Are you Kevin Sucks at Poker?" And I was pretty shocked because that was after my second video came out. So I only had something like 2,000 or maybe 3,000 total views. And the odds of someone at Bellagio having seen that video is pretty low. So it kind of made my night. I was pretty happy about it. But let's get into the hands for this week. I get seated in a new game at about 8:20 p.m. and buy in for the Bellagio 2-5 max of 500. My table doesn't fill up right away and actually stays 5 to 6 handed for a while. In the first hand, I have King 10 offsuit in the cutoff. I raise to 15. The button 3 bets to 45, and I end up making the call. The flop is Queen of Hearts, 5 of Hearts, Ace of Clubs. So I flop a gut shot. That's about it. I check. The button bets 30. And I decide to make the call here. The turn is the 9, which doesn't really change a whole lot, and it goes check, check. The river's the 2 of diamonds, which should be a brick. Since he checked the turn, I decide to lead for 60 in case he just continuation bet that flop, but didn't actually have much with the ace or the queen. He ends up making the call with ace jack, so he flopped top pair and he wins this one. After that first hand, I'm down about 135 or so I add on another 100 and I'm now in the game for 600. In the next hand, I have ace 4 offsuit in the big blind. The hijack raises to 15 and I make the call. The flop is 7 of hearts, 7 of clubs, 9 of spades. I check, he bets 10, and even though I don't have much going on here, I make the call for 10. The turn double pairs the board with the 9 of clubs. I check and he checks. The river's the 3 of clubs, bringing in a flush, but the board is double paired. I check. He bets 40. And I think a minute because there's only about 50 in the pot, but if he doesn't have some sort of overpair to at least the 7s, I could be winning with 7s and 9s with ace high, or at least chopping. He played the pot fairly weak, just betting 10 on the flop and then checking the turn. So I end up making the call thinking that I might be chopping, even though it's 40 to call to a chop. And he ends up having pocket kings, and I lose here. After that ace 4 hand and a few other small hands, I'm down about another 100. So I add on another 100, and I'm now in the game for 700. Here I have ace queen of spades in the small blind. The cutoff raises to 15. I 3-bet to 55, and he folds. Next I have ace queen offsuit in the under the gun position. I raise to 20, and only the big blind calls. The flop is 10 of clubs, 6 of spades, 4 of spades. I do have the queen spade draw and 2 overs. He checks to me. I bet 25, and he folds. So far this game has not been great. It's been pretty short-handed most of the night, and most of my good hands people have just folded to. Here I have pocket jacks under the gun. I raise to 20, and everybody folds. Here I'm in the big blind with 8 3 of clubs, which is obviously a pretty premium hand. The cutoff raises to 15. The small blind calls, so I decide to call. The game's been not great and been pretty short-handed, so for 10 more, let's see if we can do something here. The flop is the ace of clubs, the 5 of diamonds, and the 3 of hearts. So I flop bottom pair and hopes and dreams of either hitting a club flush, another 3, or maybe 2 pair and having it be good. I check. The cutoff bets 15. The small blind calls. I call. The turn is the 8 of spades, giving me 2 pair. We both check to the cutoff again. He bets 60. Now the small blind folds. I raise to 160 with a bad 2 pair because my hand is good but not great. So if he's got some sort of ace, I want to make him pay to draw to a 2 pair. If not, I'll take the win now with my not great 2 pair. He tanks for a while and folds, and I end up winning. Now I'm only down about 100. A few minutes later, I have ace-jack offsuit in the cutoff. I raise to 20, and everybody folds. A few minutes after that, I have pocket eights. Under the gun, I raise to 20, and everybody folds. Sometimes your nights just aren't great, or your tables aren't great, and this is kind of what can happen. A few minutes after the pocket eights hand, I have ace-king of hearts on the button. I raise to 20, and everybody folds. A few minutes after that, I have pocket nines in the hijack. I raise to 20, and everybody goes all in. No, I'm just kidding, everybody folds. Here I have ace-5 of spades. I raise to 20, and everybody folds. Here I'm in the small blind with pocket queens. Under the gun raises to 15. So here's where I'm going to win a big hand. I 3-bet to 45, and he folds. A few minutes later, I'm in the low jack with 10-jack offsuit. I raise to 20, and everybody folds. I would look to switch games since my game does not seem great, but the fact that it's been shorthanded most of the night makes it so that I can't move tables because they won't make my game even more shorthanded to put me into a full game. So I'm kind of stuck where I'm at. So at the moment, I'm just sticking it out, waiting to get some players, see if my game either improves or at least fills up, and if it stays bad filled up, then I'll move to another game at that point. It's fairly quiet for a while. About a half hour later, I'm on the button with 9-10 offsuit. I raise to 20, and the big blind calls. The flop is king of spades, jack of clubs, 4 of clubs. I just have a gut shot, but I'm going to keep up the aggression. He checks to me. I bet 25, and he folds. Here I have 6-8 of hearts in the cutoff. It's obviously not a strong hand, but we're still shorthanded, and as you can tell, I haven't been able to get really too involved here. Every time I raise, people fold. The game hasn't seen a lot of flops or action. It just hasn't been a good game. The low jack raises to 10, which is just a min raise. So I decide to take a call here and see if I can get involved. The small blind and the big blind both call. The flop is 6 of spades, 5 of spades, ace of diamonds. So I flop middle pair. It gets checked to the low jack, who bets 15. I decide to call. The small blind also calls, and the big blind folds. The turn is the 4 of spades, which brings me a gut shot straight draw. This time it gets checked to me. I haven't read the low jack is super strong here with the min raise and then a bet of 15 on a flop. I feel like I want to take a stab at it. This pair of sixes might be the best hand, and if not, everyone still feels pretty weak to me. So I bet 45, and only the low jack calls. The river is the 9 of clubs, which downgrades me to third pair. He checks to me, and I still feel he's pretty weak. I don't have an exact set of hands I necessarily put him on here. Even though my sixes might be good, I don't want to not bet and get called by something like sevens or eights and lose. I bet 75, and he pretty much instantly folds, so not entirely sure what he had, but I'm thinking either a very small pair or something like jack-queen that missed the board, but I do end up winning this one. A few minutes later, I'm in the +1 with 10-jack offsuit. I raise to 20, and only the cutoff calls. The flop is 6 of hearts, queen of hearts, king of clubs, so I do flop an open-ender. That's good enough for me. I bet 25, and he makes the call. The turn is the jack of hearts, which now brings in 3 hearts. I don't have any. I'm still open-ended now with third pair. It goes check-check. The river's the ace of clubs, which gives me Broadway. I don't really think he probably has hearts, but I have to be a little careful if I get raised. But I feel like my hand's too strong to just check. I bet 60, and he folds before I get my bet out. So I finally crawled out of the small hole I dug in the beginning of the session. The hijack raises to 20, and I just call. The flop is 2 of clubs, 9 of clubs, 6 of hearts. I check. He bets 25. I think about raising the flop, but most people with strong hands raise the turn, not the flop, and I decide to just call. The turn is the 10 of hearts, which probably doesn't change anything unless he happens to have 7-8 or something that had 2 overs to the board like ace 10 or king 10, something like that. I check. He bets 50. I decide to raise here to 160. Still have the nut club draw in case he calls. He does make the call. The river is the 3 of diamonds. I'm trying to think what he could have called my bet on the turn with that I could possibly bet and push off a river. If he had some sort of straight draw, he missed, unless he had 4-5, seems very unlikely. If he had some sort of hand like 2 overs on the flop, like Jack Queen or Queen King of hearts, that turned a heart draw and missed, he could fold. If he happened to have another club draw, which is less likely, of course, because I have it. I just don't see a lot on this board that seems like it would have hit his pre-flop raise range. He could have flopped a set of 9s, but I feel like most likely if he had those hands, he probably re-raises me on the turn, but maybe not. He is in position. So I lead at it for 200 to take a shot at it. He thinks for a long time and makes the call with really one of the most unlucky hands we could have been up against, which is King 10 of clubs. So on the flop, he's got 2 overs with the second nut club draw. If a club comes, I double up. There's no way he's folding if he hits the king high flush. The turn just happens to pair his 10, and he makes a call for 200 with top pair on the river. And back down again. After this hand, I add another 200 to my stack, so now I'm in the game for 900. So out of the hole for a moment, then just dug myself a nice big deep hole once again. I don't really get involved with anything for the next 40 minutes or so when I get dealt pocket 10s on the button. The hijack raises to 20, the cutoff calls. I decide I want a 3-bet to 75 here. The hijack hasn't been at the table for very long, but he says that it's the first hand I've played. He ends up making the call, and then the cutoff also makes the call. So even before the flop comes out, I'm starting to try to figure out what this guy could have where he says it's the first hand I've played, but then he just wants to smooth call as opposed to raise. So I think he could have any kind of pairs like 8s, 9s, maybe jacks, or something like Queen King suited, possibly an Ace King or an Ace Queen that wants to see a flop. He just flew into the US with his family on this day. He clearly seems ready to gamble, but he hasn't been going crazy with raises and shoves, anything like that. He just seems like he wants to be involved. I still put him on a reasonable hand, nothing super janky. The cutoff I feel is probably pretty weak when he calls 20 and then just calls another bet of 75. If he had any big hand, I would expect him to 4-bet, but he ends up just calling. The flop is 7 of clubs, 5 of clubs, 7 of hearts, which is a pretty good flop for 10s. Obviously, it would be awesome to flop a set here, but that doesn't happen. If you're not going to flop a set, this seems like a pretty great flop. I don't expect either one of them to have a 7 in their hand, and if they do, they just are going to get my money. And I also don't expect either one of them to have an overpair to me, although I think it's possible that the hijack could have something like jacks maybe queens, but I feel like those are pretty unlikely. So when this hand started, I had 430. I have 350 or something in that range, 355. It gets checked to me. I bet 140, which is about 2/3 of pot. I'm expecting my 10s to probably be good and maybe someone to call me. I'm kind of expecting them both to fold, to be honest. The hijack has other ideas. He shoves for 1,000, which obviously is more than I have, so it doesn't matter, but the cutoff also has quite a bit of money, something like 800 or more. The cutoff does fold. I want you to take a second to pause the video. Let me know what you think he is check raising me with on this flop. What do you think he has? Do you think this is an easy call with pocket 10s because I only have about 220 left and I've already put about 220 in the pot? Or do you think that if he has some sort of overpair based on the way he's played this, I could be able to fold 10s, or I should be able to fold 10s here? Let me know what you think in the comments. Pause the video, and then we'll get back to what actually happens here. I'm back to thinking about what this guy could have. It doesn't really make a ton of sense to me. The hand I think that's most likely for him to have is jacks, probably. Seems like a hand that you would raise and then maybe just call a 3-bet if he really thinks I haven't played a hand and I'm playing super tight. Maybe he wants to see a flop with jacks. Or it could just be a bluff. It could just be Ace King or Ace Queen that thinks I also have Ace King or Ace Queen, or something like Jack Queen suited or Queen King suited. He could have queen king of clubs or something like that. It just seems like a really odd line to take. I don't expect him to have pocket fives here, and if so, he would never check raise shove. You just let me keep betting. I'm going to put my money in. You wouldn't want to push me out if I am bluffing with ace king or ace queen. So I think for a long time, and I only have like 225 behind, 215, something like that. And it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. This is a great flop for 10, so even though I still think it's a little tough, he could have jacks or maybe queens here. I just don't really believe him, and I'm getting the right price. I can't really fold here. So after thinking for a while, because I don't want to dump money, I just decide I have to make this call, and I don't really expect his hand to be aces or kings. So I do make the call. We don't show at this time. And the turn comes the queen of diamonds, don't like that card. The river comes the king of diamonds, really don't like that card. So I started out with top pair on this flop, or an over pair to the flop, and I get downgraded to third pair. After the run out, he shows ace queen of spades. So yeah, he check raised me on a flop of 7-7-5 with ace queen of spades. There's no spade on the board, so he just has 2 overs. He's looking at 6 outs, and that's assuming I don't have something like kings, which I could very easily have here. And he gets instantly rewarded by turning a queen and winning this pot. I don't think I could have done anything different in this hand. I think it's just unlucky. I don't like his line at all here, but again, I don't think this player was the most thinking of poker players. I think he's just, hey, I have good cards, and he wants to check raise me, and probably thinks, most people raise with ace king. He's probably got ace king. I can push him off an ace king when the flop comes 7-7-5. It's amazing to me how many times I see someone raise and then the person says, oh, I put you on ace king. Like, every single time someone raises or 3-bets, they have ace king and no other hand. It kind of blows my mind how many people think, oh, if you're raising, it must be ace king. That's not true, people. You can raise with lots of hands other than ace king. So anyway, he didn't say that to me, but that's the only thing that would make sense with him check raising me on this flop, is that he thought I had something like ace king or 2 overs to the board that could fold. That doesn't track with him saying that it's the first hand I've played, and it really is probably the first hand I've played in 45 minutes. So I don't really understand his bet at all, to be honest. He must just think he can check raise me and push me off. He can't think ace queen is good here, I don't think. But I don't get his reasoning for it. So the poker gods get me here. They reward the player whose line of thinking doesn't make a ton of sense. After this one, I decide that I've had enough for the evening, kind of tired, and my game has been bad the whole night. It's finally gotten better with this guy who sat down, and there's a couple spots I'm interested in getting involved with, but not enough to keep me in the game at this point. I decide to call it a night, down 900. All right, everyone, welcome back. This is just a quick outro to go over my sessions between my last April 15th, 2022 session, which was in vlogs 3 and 4, and this session, which was May 21st, 2022, which is, of course, vlog 5. So between those, I actually was sick, so there was a few weeks I didn't really get to play, just didn't feel well, and also didn't want to get anybody else sick. So I did play on May 6th, and I lost $260. That was back at Bellagio playing 2-5. Then on May 12th, which was a Thursday, my wife and I went to go see the Psychedelic Furs at Mandalay Bay, the House of Blues. And afterward, we just played some 1-2 for a while. That was the biggest game they had going. And I won $70. And then May 13th, I was back playing 2-5 at Bellagio. I won $650. And then the session today was May 21st, 2022, and as you saw, I lost 900 on that one. So my running total is going to be on the screen. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. If you enjoyed any of my other videos, please like and subscribe. It does help the channel a lot. So thank you again, and I hope to see you next time.